We're going to start with our introductions. My name is Lola Yazzie. I'm the Vice President of the Youth Council, Nespelem Youth Council. I'm Colville and descendant of the Navajo tribe. I go to Lake Roosevelt High School and I'm a senior.
I'm C. Rose Dick. I go to Lake Roosevelt High School, and I'm in 11th grade, and I'm a Colville tribal.
My name is DC Atkins. I come from the Wenatchee, Yakima, and Crow tribes. I go to school at Lake Roosevelt High School, and I'm a freshman.
My name is Cassius Parrish. I'm treasurer on the youth council. I'm from the Colville tribe. I go to school at Lake Roosevelt High School, and I'm a sophomore.
We'll now open up your guys' introductions. Can you guys please introduce yourselves with your name, your tribe, and the position you're running for? We'll start with Dr. Allison Ball.
My name is Allison Ball. I'm running for position number 1 for Nespelem District. And I'm Colville and Lakes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Jason Erickson. I'm also running for position 1. My tribes are Colville, Lakes, and Okanagan.
Waihaskahali Hutkanisquis Stelimptus Puskin Wickinis Nispiayat. Hello, good day, Badgers. My name Andy Joseph Jr. Most of my blood is Palouse, from my mom's side, and she's also Wenatchee and Moses and Eniat, and a little bit of Sampoil. And my dad was Okanagan and Lakes, and I believe a little bit of Methow.
Ashchui, Kinlamt, Skinta Quachut, Wepak, Insta Quachut, Sophie Nomi. Good evening. It's good to be here. My Indian name is Wepak, which means growing in the water. My government name is Sophie Nomi. My parents were William and Mabel Dick, and my bands are Wenatchee, Okanagan, Iniat, Chelan, and Palouse. Thank you.
My name is Damon Tenasket, and my bands are Sampoil, Okanagan, and Lakes. And I'm running for CBC Nespelem District Position 1.
I'm Moses, Wenatchee, and Columbia. Running for position number 2, Nespelem. My parents are Carrie Reyes and George Batten, born and raised around the Nespelem area.
Thank you, guys. We'd now like to introduce Allison Nomi to do our opening prayer.
Toke Kashkaram. Harin Chutin, Atsen Tolt, Isnakskint, Tochten Tolt, Well Quats, Kat Halach Haswil,
tochten tol chachun man tekir plantum. Yar yar tu in wank lam lam cool yar yout. She yar yar con quinamitot tochten tot kashma mayochkit in week el michwam tilita.
Check, check.
Now I'd like to invite Rena Whiteman and Ciro Stick to read the youth statement and the rules for this forum.
Good evening. My name is Rena Whiteman, a youth education advocate for Nespelem. I helped gather the youth here tonight. I want to thank them for showing up. This event is dedicated to the Nespelem Youth Council and the youth representatives, providing them with an opportunity to engage directly with tribal leader candidates, and learn more about their campaign platforms. Our goal is to create a positive, youth-centered experience that engages learning, dialogue, and the importance of civic engagement. We respectfully ask all candidates and audience to honor the presence of the voice of our youth by maintaining a spirit of respect and encouragement throughout the event. It takes a lot of courage for our young people to participate in something of this significance, and we commend their commitment to learning and leadership in our community.
The debate rules are each candidate will have a set time for opening statement, responses, and closing remarks. Opening statement, 2 minutes. Response to questions, 2 minutes per question. Closing statement, 2 minutes. A designated moderator will facilitate the debate, ensuring fair and orderly discussion. The moderators will have authority to enforce rules and maintain decorum. Candidates will be given equal opportunity to respond. No direct rebels unless specific by the moderators. Candidates must remain respectful and professional. Personal attacks, interruptions, or inflammatory language will not be tolerated. Repeated I can't do this. I'm sorry.
Conduct. Candidates must remain respectful and professional. Personal attacks, interruptions, or inflammatory language will not be tolerated. Repeated violations may result in a time deduction or removal from the debate. Audience participation. The audience is encouraged to attend and listen but must remain respectful. No disruptions, shouting, or commentary during candidate responses. We want to give each of you a warm-up question. This is just for fun. The question will be, what would be in your council starting pack if you get elected? For example, Cash's starter pack would be a big beaded medallion, a Pendleton vest, and a top hat. Each of you will have around 30 seconds to answer. We'll start down at this end.
Actually, since this is my third term, what I would do is in my council starter packet is I would have a lot of giveaway items. I think traditionally and culturally there's something that I had missed the first 2 terms is really to acknowledge. I thank people personally and verbally, for their support. But for this next election, I would want to do the giveaway and a dinner that I probably should have had at the very beginning to be able to thank the community for their confidence. That would be probably my starter packet, as well as I have my own traditional buckskin dresses, and I never wore them, and I'm not sure why I didn't. I think there's sometimes I'm a little timid, a little bit shy, and to be able to come out and be different, that's a challenge. But I would probably, in my starter package, wear one of my buckskin dresses. to be able to see the honor it is to be a leader for the tribe. Thank you.
Ditto. Just kidding. That's a good question. I'm not sure. If you ever seen those memes with the council starter pack, I think those are pretty good. That's kind of funny, but I don't think I'd have anything in mind. I don't need anything, but thank you.
It's kind of hard to hear with, it's like an echo or something in here. So I'd had a hard time kind of understanding the question.
I'll repeat it. What would be in your council starter pack if you get elected? And this question is just for fun. So for example, Cassius's starter pack would include a big beaded medallion, a Pendleton vest, and a top hat.
Okay. Well, I know it's really important to be able to identify us as a race in this country. Right now, if you watch the news and see what's going on out there, they're attacking a lot of people of color right now, and so to me it's very important to wear some of our traditional clothing and what we identify ourselves with. A lot of what I wear in hearings and stuff is made from right here from our own people, and that gives me the strength that I need. Thank you.
My starter pack would be a good mind, a good heart, and listening ears. That's what I would bring to the table. As far as my clothing, I would wear the best clothing I can, because that's how I was taught, to be dressed your best whenever and wherever you go, because you create that image for people to look at you. And I have a good spirit, and that's what I would bring.
I bombed this one last time. Honestly, I think it would be probably a case of full throttles, some sort of shaving material to get rid of some of this, to kind of clean up a little bit, and a good attitude. That's about it.
For me, it would probably be a beaded hat from somebody local to kind of present to the community and to people that I'd be meeting, and a tie, just to look professional and present ourselves properly and appropriately.
For me, I guess I have also been on council, and I've also been the tribal chair for 3 years. And, I agree. I think dressing appropriately is important. If that means if you're going to be greeting the legislature, they do have a professional dress code of, a suit and tie, and I have dressed that way. I've, also dressed traditionally as well, and I think that's also very important. I wasn't always comfortable doing this, but I've actually had elders ask me to join in the grand entries of our powwow, and I honored that, and I did that the best that I could. In my starter pack, I guess what I'd really like to have, and one of the things that I think is kind of missing, with our tribal council, is really working with our youth, and today it's really awesome to see how far this has come, because this has come a long ways from when you first started putting these, panels together, as I can see here with everything tonight. But I've been to And I've testified both in the state and in the federal government, and there are times when I've seen council members take youth with them, just if for nothing else to witness, what it's like to be in a legislature, what it's like to encounter other lawmakers, and the discussion and the meetings that you have with them. So I think that would be a cool thing if to continue this dialogue with young people if I'm elected. Thank you.
We will now start with our questions. To remind you, you each have 2 minutes to answer each question, and Cassius will ask our first question.
My question is, what are your plans to address substance abuse issues that impact our youth and families? We'll start with Dr. Allison Ball.
A lot of history looking at substance abuse among American Indian youth and treatment. That's actually my dissertation that I did. When I went to school, my family, my community, a lot of people were suffering from alcohol and drugs, and that was, something that I really wanted to address. I used to be a counselor down at NARA for about 5 years in an adult treatment facility, and then I moved to Chiloquin, Oregon, and for about 3-4 years I was a youth counselor. I got a lot of youth into treatment. I started family groups. I did a lot of things in the evening. I put on activities during the weekends so that it would keep the youth busy. We did probably one of the things that I did was put together a tournament that it was like we had softball, basketball, we had tossing eggs, we had a little track, and it was from 2 years old to somebody had to be on the team that was over 50. So it involved the whole family. That was the first weekend. And then we did a point system. So it was who participated. You got a point, and that's how you won the game. It had nothing to do with winning. It had to do with how you participated. The second week, we had a talent contest, and the family had to put on a skit about alcohol and drugs in their community. And then after the skits, we gave out the awards, and we tried to make sure that everybody received something. So that was kind of the activities that I would do with youth. I also ran a prevention for drug-free years and ran a coalition. I brought all the agencies together to kind of work together. So it'd be the same thing. But I'm running out of time, so I forgot the other starter package I would have is this hat that says, "Make America Native Again."
Hi, my name's Jason. I'm an alcoholic. If you know me or know about any of my past, I battled alcoholism for about 20 years. I admitted I had a problem and decided I needed to go to treatment. So I've been sober now for just over 31 months. Also, if you know about me, I'm a big advocate for people who suffer. I host a Wilbriety meeting twice a week up here and down at Auntie Danny's to help those who are suffering who want to come. I've been doing that for about 14 or 15 months. I've been facilitating a Wilbriety class out at Royal Life Center in Spokane where I attended treatment, and I've been enjoying that, just giving back, helping others. I'll also be attending the Icelandic model. They have some training next week, so I can get some more information on the prevention. But I would like to see us make a connection with some of these treatment centers. I've been to talks with Royal Life Center and Sequoia Detox about getting some sort of connection that the Salish Kootenai have where they send their people, because our people need help. I mean, it's pretty evident here how bad we need it. I'd also like to see us develop some sort of detox center here. It's very difficult to get into these places. I've had a few people call me even recently and trying to help them, and they're booked out 3 weeks. So people, when they need help, they need it now. So, like I said, I'm a very open advocate. I'm trying to do everything I can to help our people with my actions. So that's what I like to see, and that's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
Being active in parent committees from Head Start all the way through to our Nespelem school and on the school board. It's very important. There's opportunities for young parents to engage on where the funding is going to be spent. That comes in to help with our youth that attend the schools. On a legislative part of the job as a councilman is to make sure that funding is going to come in through the federal government to the tribes and also through the states. Without that funding, a lot of programs that help our youth would not be able to be administered, and that's very important. Supporting our youth and their school activities and sports and our events that we have here local. I really believe that we need to engage more with our youth in our tradition and cultural ways of upbringing, and to me, there's a lot of prevention that could happen with that. Anyway, I really believe that we need to be open and listen to our youth, and I'd really like to see them actually come into council with some recommendations. It's really good to make sure that all the youth are being treated equal. Sometimes there's bullies out there and they need help.
This subject is really true to my heart, and my husband was an alcoholic. My parents were alcoholics. I engaged in a lot of this year work already through what I do on a daily basis, pertaining to the Healing to Wellness Court that I was overseeing for our tribe, as well as testifying in federal court pertaining to the opioid crisis throughout Washington State, when Washington State is suing these opioid companies as well. That's just the beginning of it. I find that a lot of these, this year starts at home. We need to help our people at their home and help them understand why children or our adults are turning towards substance abuse, whether that be trauma in their life or things they're battling with on a daily basis. And that starts in our homes, and we need to help our families first. And some people, when they're addicts, they need that help. They need that person to believe in them. And it only takes one person to believe in them to help them along. And I commend Jason on his work, his recovery. And our treatment centers, yes, we do need a detox center on this reservation or near this reservation, because the closest one is Spokane, and not everybody can get there. And it's hard because when addicts decide to quit, and it is their choice, and it can't be anybody else's, they need help right away. And our programs need to reach out and help them in that crisis situation when they ask for that help. And that's what I would work on.
Wow. So I've got 5 kids in school, and I've got to graduate. I got a kid graduating this year, and I'll have again next year. So I'm truly invested in our youth. I think that what we've been doing this whole time is all well and good, but I think that there comes a time where we've been doing the same thing over and over and over, and we're not seeing any different results. And I think that somewhere we're going to have to make a change, and I think that change starts at our youth in schools. And I think, and my idea would be to implement some form of curriculum, because I do believe we have that authority over reservation schools to put like a 30-minute class in where all of our students are learning their culture. I've read studies where even as little as a few hours a week participating in cultural activities, the Native youth showed a significant uptick in their mood. It's an anti-anxiety. It's all of those things because our minds are only 2, 3, 4 generations away from being out in those prairies every day, all day, every day. So, we have it built into our DNA to be free people, and so there are these generational traumas that are sitting there that we need to address early, really early. And I think that if we have happy children, that the addictions will melt away, I too am an alcoholic, Jason. I've been sober since January 1st, 2021. And I just feel like it all starts at a young age. The addiction.
Yeah. For my ideals for this would be working more with youth, getting them, getting the community together to support the youth, because it does start young. They learn, growing up, I did have friends that turned to addiction and unfortunately did pass from it. And I know talking to their parents, it was, hey, you were a great friend, you were a close friend. So building that relationship and helping them encourage them to do better and to better themselves. I grew up with the knowledge, the ideal of it takes a tribe to raise a child. And it does. It takes a community to raise everybody. I was friends with everybody. I have a big family, and that helped a lot. That helped encourage me to not, pursue anything like that. So I would love to see that. I'd love to see more community events with the kids to encourage them on what not to do or how to help somebody deal with those things. And I know growing up, I dealt with a lot of depression. So helping with mental health early on, or encouraging them to reach out for it I think would really benefit on not looking towards alternative ways or self-medication. And I know in school we had the DARE program. I would love to see that come back and encourage that to come back for the community and for the kids, to show them that, hey, this isn't really a good option. Here's some alternatives. And bring back music, bring back art, bring back mechanics into the school to encourage them that there's a lot of options out there, not just go to college and do all the expensive stuff. Working with your hands is a huge thing in the world. That's what I'd like to see.
This is a very difficult question, to answer. And it makes me reflect back again, when I was the chair for this tribe, and all of the times that families came to me. And I remember one time in particular, and this parent came into my office and literally cussed me out because their child committed suicide and was on drugs when this happened. Staff came in and asked if I was okay, and I just said, I'm okay. We just need to listen. Just let them go. And for me, I'll try to look at processes and try to understand a problem. I've been to DSHS trainings on, alcoholism and drug abuse, and there's many different studies out there. I mean, you can read those for but I think a lot of it is we need to stop the drugs, first of all, from coming onto this reservation in any way that we can, because these drug dealers are killing our youth, and that just is not acceptable. So we have to stop that. No matter who they are, it has to be stopped. And then I think empower the youth to make them feel, very worthy and provide activities during the times when we see that so many things occur, like right after we receive our 181D payments. How many of our young people pass away? What about New Year's Eve and just sponsoring a powwow, supporting kids in their sports activities? We need to do everything to build their self-identity. Thank you.
Our next question is, what have you done for the youth? What are your plans for the youth, and what resources do you commit to advocate let me restart. What have you done for the youth? What are your plans for the youth? And what resources do you commit to advocate for if you get elected? We'll start down at Dr. Rodney's end.
You know, one of the things that, presently I, the director for the Environmental Trust Department, and one of the responsibilities of our program is that we need to protect and restore a lot of our traditional plants and foods. And so one of the things that we are actually going to do is we're going to do a traditional food summit. And that's at the end of this month. And I hope I see every one of you there, because we're doing this in part to really encourage our youth to learn more about their culture and to listen to their elders. We're going to have elders circles that are going to just talk about who we are as Indian people. You know, whether you're St. Ike's or whether, you're Nimipu. Actually for this conference, we're going to start with the Insulchin language, because we're going to honor the tribes that actually come from this area. And we need to do that. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do other things to bring out the language and culture of all the rest of our tribes. But I think that initially that's what we're going to do. And I think we got an awesome program that we've gotten planned. My wife and I, throughout our lifetime, we've encouraged youth. We've done many different classes. We've, whether that's with sports or cultural events, we've always tried to step forward to really sponsor and do anything that we can to help out with those activities, because we really think that that's important to our people as to who we are. So anyway, I hope that I can see some of you there. For our youth, you are our future. You've heard that many different times. It's not about us, any of us sitting up here at this table. It's all about you and your future and your world. And I think about those things all of the time, especially because I am a grandfather. I do have grandchildren. Thank you.
I guess for me, it would be, I would love to have, the youth involved with STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That was something I was involved with in high school, got me started with technology. I work for the tribe for the IT department. I love it, and I'd love to have the youth be more involved with that again and send them off to, the ACES conference and to, I don't know if they still do the competition at WSU for STEM to come up with renewable resources or alternative energy. That got me really involved with working with technology and working with my hands. I'd love to see that come back. I would love to send youth off to, be able to support them to go out and explore the world, send them on trips to Seattle to check, see the art museum, the science museum, things like that. And I guess work within the schools, being able to work with getting them resources to help support them on their trips to sporting events and things like that. I'd love to see that a lot more as well. So those are the things that I'd like to do.
Oh boy. So you guys probably aren't gonna like this, but I feel like for a long time now that not just here on the reservation, but I feel like across the board or across the state, maybe in the U.S., that we've been failing our kids education-wise. This No Child Left Behind deal is, I think, a bad concept. I think we're leaving you guys out to dry. Not all of you, like the advanced kids, you have your advanced classes. You know, you can do that. You get to have that advantage. However, for the average student, they're being held to the lowest standard available, and I think that that's just not. This is not right. I think that we're not doing it. We're doing you guys a disservice by putting the majority of you out to at 18 and saying, hey, we did our best. You know, I think that we need to educate our kids better. I think that our standards need to be brought up a little bit. I think that if people are failing, that they need to be held back. Then they don't need to fail, or if they're failing, they need to be held back and not hold the whole class back in order for that person to succeed as well. And that's just my thought. That's my feeling. Like I said, I've heard a lot of pushback on my idea with that. However, that's what I would bring. I would push a tougher curriculum at our schools. I would push for stricter testing. You know, I would push for you know, more resources. Obviously, if we're going to ask you to be more successful, we're going to have to present you with more resources in order to get those things done. So, yeah. Almost did.
Either one's fine. There, you know, this is a big question because we can do a lot more for our youth across the board, whether that be traditional teachings and culture, whether that be education, whether that be sports, because across Indian country, a lot of our students are into sports. And, you know, growing up, I was into sports, and that's what kept me going in school, is getting good grades in sports. And also connecting with other youth and being able to attend like sports ambassador conferences, leadership conferences, different unity conferences. Those are the connections I made throughout my life growing up, and I'd like to see that be brought back as well, because those were very educational for me and helpful for me growing up and dealing with the things that you guys deal with as youth now. It's bigger. Social media plays into part of that, and that's where some of the education needs to be brought to, is healthy relationships, healthy contacts with each other. And that's just the start of it. There's much more, like there's the wellness centers that are being built on this reservation that these programs could be a part of. And we need to think about what kind of resources are going to be reached out to our youth through those wellness centers as well. That's just the beginning, though. Thank you.
I wish I had more time on this one. Like I said, I served on parent committees for Head Start and Nespelem School, and I served on the Nespelem School Board. I donated diggers to our Head Start, 30 of them, 30 to Nespelem School, 30 to Pasco Sherman School. I welded the poles that hold the baskets for the Mill Pond Days in the park, and also helped build the goal posts for Nespelem School's football field. Was the president of the Healing Lodge Seven Nations Youth Treatment Center, where they use traditional and cultural and music to help with people deal with treatment and prevention. On a national level, there's a lot of programs that our tribe receives fundings for our youth through the ACF. That funds TANF, that helps a lot of our young families so that they can have things. That I've also testified on behalf of Head Start while I was there several times. And anyway, you know, when I've coached, there used to be baseball fields right here. I coached T-ball, minors, and majors. We never got beat. We had 2 teams here, and anyway, my baseball team came to my house, and they sweat in our sweat house, and they learned, you know, some of them had some pretty interesting prayers in the sweat house, but I really believe that we need more activities like that to help our youth and more funding. Thank you.
Yeah, so as far as, being involved in the youth, I've, coached sports, youth sports, high school sports. I'm currently coaching T-ball right now. We actually have practice right after this. I'm part of the Booster Club. I've donated to the Booster Club. I've donated to any of the raffles, the free throws the kids put on. So I don't have any biological kids of my own, but I still like being a part of the youth and helping out personally where I can. And then as far as allocating some more resources towards the youth, if you read my letter, I begin to talk about financial sovereignty, where that trickles down into other things. So if you look at some of these other tribes, Kalispel's, Spokane's now, the coastal tribes, what do they all have in common? They all have a casino near a big city, generate funds that they can use to pay for these things. So I'd like to see us maybe have some sort of new wellness center, some place where the kids can go to do cultural activities, do sports, somewhere that's safe. We just talked about substance abuse. So it definitely starts with prevention. It starts with the youth and having positive role models. So that's what I would like to see. Thank you.
The things that I learned in research when I looked at substance abuse among American Indian youth, and also in my experience in counseling, what I know is there are a couple of real protective factors that protect the youth. The first one I could mention is that they have positive ethnic identity development. So as youth develop, that you know who you are, where you come from, that you're competent in whatever it is that you want to achieve. It could be culture, it could be language, it could be education, it could be, you seeing that I'm sitting here, there's a couple of doctors at the table, that you could be a doctor. But there's also medicine people here that you could be a medicine person. You could be a language expert, that, whatever it is, that we make sure that you have the resources to be that competent Colville as you go along the line, that you have good people in your life. The youth development program, as it developed, before it was kind of looking at attendance, but today they kind of work with you in many different arenas on mental health, social development, academics. Those are the resources that we make sure that you're provided. That's that's an indirect one. The other one is opportunities to be able to do whatever it is you want. If you want to go to school, college, that those opportunities there with higher education, with grants, those things that you want to be. The other thing is, probably really big, is I help your parents. I help your parents be better parents, to make sure that those resources are out there for treatment, for early intervention, to make sure that they get healthy and well, because ultimately if they're healthy and well, then the youth themselves will be healthy and well. Right.
Okay, for our next question, how will you advocate for tribal sovereignty in partnerships with federal and state governments? We'll start with Dr. Allison Ball.
Tribal sovereignty is really hard to probably define. When you really look, tribal sovereignty is to be able to run your own government, to be able to run your own community. It's that luxury. One of it is tribal sovereignty is probably the funding. When we really look at funding, finances, that we have a diverse funding stream, that money's not just coming from the federal government, the state government, but it's money that the tribe themselves could actually generate. That's what gives you sovereignty, because you get to spend it however you want to spend it, where you think the need is. State and federal funding, that's their need. It's not our need, it's their need. So we need to generate more funds to be able to make our own decisions. Tribal sovereignty is when contracts appear at the table and we choose not to take it to our tribal court, but we allow these contractors to go to county court, to state court, to federal court. No, it should be in our own court system, but we let those slip by. But I do speak up. A few of us do speak up. That's tribal sovereignty. Tribal sovereignty is to be able to determine our own vision, our own direction. Sometimes when you're dependent on the federal and the state, what it turns us into is like a welfare state. We get dependent on them, and then our minds get weak, our finances get weak, our whole social structure gets weak. So what we need to do is continue to look at economic development, and that's what gives us tribal sovereignty, so we can actually make our own decisions. We determine what we're going to fund, what it is that we want for ourselves.
Yeah, like Allison touched on, I touched on before, is that our financial sovereignty, I believe it really begins there, and then it trickles down. So that's something that I believe is very important, that economic development. Also, I'm fortunate that my brother, I get to talk to him quite a bit. He gets to go and travel and advocate for our people, so I get to pick his brain on who he's talking to and what he's doing, and how he's trying to help our tribe on a daily. So, part of it being on council is I would, love to travel to talk and advocate for us. Excuse me. Also, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. But anyways, I would definitely love to get out there, advocate. Also, like Allison said, we talked about relying on government and state funding, which is quite a bit of our funding, and to be able to be sovereign, we'd be able to have our own money to fund everything that we need. I mean, with this Trump administration and everything going on, who knows what could happen? It's very scary at this time. So once again, I think that financial sovereignty could trickle down to everything else in our sovereign nation. So thank you.
Our tribes have had sovereignty from the beginning. Our warriors fought in wars, and our chiefs signed agreements with the federal government for what we have. We have our own rules and laws that we need to adhere to in our courts, and when we go to any state or federal court, we need to make sure that tribal law is what we're following. We should never bow down to either the state or the federal government. Sometimes when you're in the meetings with the highest level, like with the Secretary of HHS, for instance, we'd have to remind them that we're not we're not the like the general population out there. We have rights that are written in the Constitution, and they need to look at how they deal with us on that level. And to me, it's very important that we let them know that at every opportunity, because believe me, the federal government right now is picking at different things and taking a lot of their trust responsibility away that is owed to our tribes. And to me, that's very important that we have a strong voice to protect our people. Thank you.
Tribal sovereignty, self-governance. That's where we start. Is the leaders here, our council are our leaders, and they're the ones who make the decisions pertaining to our people. And we need to start listening to more of our people, and starting with our laws. We need to update our laws to tailor them towards our own people, our own traditions, our own culture. We adopted a lot of our laws from the Anglo the Anglo, the non-native people. Those are where our laws, a lot of our laws come from. So we need to update them first and foremost, just like Allison and Jason also touched base on in regards to our economic development. We need to start looking at being a sustaining tribe, looking at how we can create that income coming in for our own people to not rely on the grants, the government grants and stuff. But we also need to keep that connection and that relationship with the federal and state. Your other question was what I did, what am I doing so far as a person? Last year, I did bring some federal officials here. They didn't understand what we do here as our people, our programs, what we have to offer our people already, and giving that there and opening their eyes to that. They were really happy to see what we have to offer, and they want to engage with us as well. So keeping that open relationship with them and helping them understand who we are, what we offer. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Man, Sophie hit it right on the head. Self-governance. That's exactly what I was going to say. And it goes, I think it goes, like you said, with our laws. I mean, the more influence that outside entities have on us, the less sovereignty we have. That's just fact. And economic-wise, you know, I have a different viewpoint on that. I think it is great for us to, as a tribe, to produce our own income and our own wealth, you know, so we can cut off the purse strings from the state and the federal government. However, I think our real issue facing the reservation is our local economy. Anytime that we do receive any type of settlement, or, you know, we get our Cooley Dam check, the vast majority of that money leaves the reservation, and it goes out to Spokane, it goes to OMAC, it goes to Seattle, it goes to other places, and it doesn't stay here. And I think that's what we need to focus on and build, is our local economy, keeping our dollars here on the reservation as much as possible. You know, Jason was doing a great job of that with in NDF, working with those, you know, getting businesses off the ground, native-owned businesses. That's the type of thing that's going to gain our sovereignty. That's going to cut us off from the federal government. It's going to make us self-sufficient. We need entrepreneurs. We need people to take chances, and we need to invest in those people that are willing to take chances. You know, I fully believe that if we can build a local economy, that just that in itself will start to cut off most of those federal and state purse strings for us.
Yeah. I agree with everybody else at the table regarding the self-sufficiency and working our way to being self-reliant rather than reaching out to federal or state on relying on their money that may disappear one day. I would love to see us be self-sufficient, and, you know, if they do go away, we're not hurting at all. Everybody's still living their lives, or even better than before. Definitely dealing, you know, building up our laws a whole lot more to be more modernized would help build us to be more sovereign, and working with the federal and the state to, you know, help them understand that we operate differently than just everybody else. We have different beliefs. We have different, just different thought process than everybody else, and bringing that to them so that they understand that when they do come to help us, they have that understanding, and we have those built relationships. Because right now, I do know that those are rocky. But starting out, it would be definitely working on self-sufficient, self-reliance, because that's going to be the backbone of everything.
Well, you know, when I think about self-governance, I think of governance over our own lands. And when I first came onto council, I thought, what could I do to have the greatest impact for our people? And I want to acknowledge my wife for one, because she's the one who negotiated multiple casinos for the Colville tribe. Many people don't know that, but we do have multiple casino sites that set that for the rest of the state of Washington. And when I got on council, I always said, we're not going to make any money in Okanagan and Ferry counties. These are just some of the, most challenged counties in the state of Washington. And so I pushed council in all of our retreats. Let's look at what we can do off reservation. I really believe that is where our opportunities are at. I read the Treaty of 1855, the Treaty of 1855 minutes, the U.S. versus Oregon case, and many other laws looking at, let's start a casino operation off reservation. And we looked at demographics, and we tasked that with the executive director at the time to begin looking for lands across the state, and we decided on Pasco. And looking at, we've had that studied that Pasco could be equivalent to Northern Quest and Spokane, and maybe even greater. And that could bring us more economic prosperity, new jobs, and it would be then governance over lands that are ours of the Palouse people. And it's in the Treaty of 1855 in the U.S. versus Oregon, they acknowledged and recognized that the Palouse did sign the Treaty of 1855 and ceded that land and still retained those rights, to that land. A lot of tribes are fighting us for that right now, but those just one example I can give you of self-governance. Thank you.
Our next question will be, how do you plan to address housing shortages and affordability issues on the reservation? I would like to start on this side. How do you plan to address housing shortages and affordability issues on the reservation?
Housing is a problem. It's not only a problem for a low income, but it's also for a working class of people. And when I was on council, I approached Congress to really look at and explore ways of how can we develop housing, for the working class, because we really do need that. And, at the time I went down and we were looking, I got so many complaints about the trailer court that was down at, Elmer City. And I couldn't believe some of the things that I saw there. There were electrical cables laying over the top of those trailers. There was this elder built an asbestos, or a porch out of asbestos materials. And I thought, well, that's not no way to treat our people. But in that way, let's look at how can we develop housing, and that did result in developing housing at that site. And at the time, we wanted to look for working class professionals, because it was very difficult for us to bring health professionals, educational professionals to this reservation in many different positions. And one of the reasons, when we surveyed many of those who turned the jobs down, said they couldn't find housing. And so that was just one small area. And I think that we need to do that more, but we need to do more of that for our own people, and really task our, housing department to do that. Not only to look at low income and look at HUD, and, but also look at what we can do. One of the things that I did too was let's expand HUD into Spokane, and that was successful. At the time, we got $1.5 million to develop something within Spokane, but that's when I lost my election, so I don't know where that went with the present council. But we did expand housing into Spokane, and I really thought we needed to do the same thing with IHS and other federal and state programs as well. Thank you.
Yeah, regarding the housing and low income, I would like to look towards what it would take to make a more practical housing development, whether it's developing more HUD homes, or possibly looking at apartment complexes that are reasonably built, reasonably cost effective for either our working class or our low income class to live in that don't have, can't afford a vehicle. We have shuttles to help transport people around. So building more apartments, more housing, or seeing what it takes to assist people to get housing or to be able to develop their own housings, rather than have to, leave the area and go work out in Spokane, go work in Ephrata, Moses Lake, or just straight up leave the area. Because at the end of the day, they leave, we lose people from our area, and being able to help provide them with a home, a job, things like that could help develop a lot of that for them. And definitely having that lower income would help a lot.
Wow. So housing. Honestly, it's not even an easy question to really answer. It all comes down to funding. Where are we going to get the funds to be able to produce, homes? And the way that the economy and the administration is going right now, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think we would have to start to look at more out of the box kind of ideas. Where can we source local timber? Can we get people to build these tiny homes with their own two hands? Maybe get people involved in the process and where we're employing people and giving them eventually a place to live. Maybe outside of the box, maybe a barracks. Maybe a place where you can have not really an apartment complex, but you'd have 20 rooms inside of a little dormitory where it could just be another kind of living situation. And I think given the state of the United States right now in our economy, the uncertainty of grant funding and all that stuff, I think it's just we're going to really have to look internally to fix our problems like housing. I don't think housing is going to get fixed by the federal government anytime soon, at least not the next 4 years. So I think, like I said, I think we have to think outside of the box and start to come up with radical ideas. Like I said, building our own, using our own, grabbing people that need homes and saying, look, put forth this much effort, we'll help pay for it, and there you go. So.
Housing is a big issue on not only this reservation but all reservations, because we're put in such rural areas that not a lot of housing is available throughout this reservation. This is why we lose a lot of good people that want to work here for our tribe, because it isn't available. My solution would probably be trying to find funding to build more houses, whether that be, and I do like the idea of tiny houses because other reservations have been doing that as well, for the homeless people to start off. It's really hard to get like your own loan to get a home and stuff through our own banks, local banks, through our tribal credit. Things change, our economy change, our administration has changed significantly, and that impacts our tribe, and not only our tribe, but all tribes. So it just, like he said, it just comes down to trying to find that funding, and with the administration going the way it is, it's gonna be that much harder. So we need to look at how we can utilize our own local people to do this. We do have really great contractors on this reservation, and we need to start utilizing them. We used to have our own construction company for our tribe that made us millions of dollars when they were, and that's what we need to look at and bring back.
I live in a HUD house, and I paid it off. It was bid out and probably built with the poorest material that they could get. so the contractor could make a big pot of money. I spent a lot of time repairing my home. Anyway, I really believe that we do need to think outside the box, and every tribal member is allotted so much of the timber for lumber to build a home, and I really believe that we need to pull our resources together and start some sort of like a sweat equity type of a system. I personally been thinking about investing in a small portable sawmill to cut timber either into logs for log cabins or something, because I watch a lot of building off the grid, and I really believe that we have all the material out there that we could be building homes, and they could be solar powered and self-sufficient, where we're not having to pay in extra to our electric company that don't want us to deal with solar. Anyway, I really believe that it's going to be tough. HUD is going to be cut $290 million. One of my friends told me that he was going to be at a meeting in Seattle. He used to be one of our HUD directors. Thank you.
Yeah, so last year when I was getting certified to be a financial counselor, I met a gentleman named Dan Rydell, and he works for Northwest Native Asset Building Coalition, Northwest Native ABC. And what he does is he puts up these stick-built houses, and they go up within a few days to a few weeks. The lumber comes from other tribes and reservations. So I talked to him, and I asked him to come in sometime and talk with council and presenting to them, because if you look around, we do have the land for housing. We do. If you go through Nespelem or Cooley Dam, there's open lots, there's old houses. So we do have the potential to do that. So bringing in someone like Dan to be able to put up these houses that are relatively cheap, and also hire our own people and our contractors, we can also create jobs. So for me, this was kind of a win-win. So I do have that connection to hopefully get him in to help address something like this. So thank you.
Have you ever been in a class and you didn't know the answer? So you kind of went to the back of the room? Well, this is one of those times for me. If we talked about health, we talked about education, tribal sovereignty, culture, I could respond to you. But the housing need is so great, I do not have the answer. I know that at the table we have the Cedar Fund that's supposed to be looking into housing. They're funded for that primary purpose. I know that we have HUD housing that we've given direction to find middle class housing situations to build for the middle class, because the low income, you can't exist in that, because as soon as you start making more money, the rent goes up, and there's no ceiling to that rent. We developed a committee, a housing committee with staff, with some council members, and I believe the Cedar Fund might be part of that. But I didn't volunteer for that because I don't know. It's such a huge issue, on the reservation. And it's one of those social determinants of health. If you don't have good housing, it's going to reflect back on your health system. So I'm going to be honest, there are some strengths at the table as council members. You can bring strengths in your knowledge, but really not everybody has the answer at the table. So I just want you to know that sometimes you're just not going to have the answer. And you just continue to go down that road by bringing other people in that may be able to help with the solution. Limla.
It's now time for your closing remarks. Each of you will have 3 minutes to say what your top priorities would be if you are elected and how you plan to achieve them. We'll start at Dr. Allison Ball's end.
there's some projects. The only reason why I decided to run for a third term is I want to see some projects finished. When I was a health director, I actually helped with the Sampoil Treatment Center. I helped with the enhanced rate with the convalescent center so we can get a new convalescent center built, and the OMAC clinic, and then to 638, the rest of our clinical health services, and then to build a health authority. Well, we got the Sampoil Treatment Center built. We have the OMAC clinic almost built, but there's still a need to push for the convalescent center to get that built. So that is one of the projects that I'm real advocate, The other thing is to get our 638 to rest of the health services, to be able to 638 those up, because that's true tribal sovereignty. It would be us running our own healthcare system. It's also to develop and understand that our healthcare, sometimes it gets mixed up with politics. So we want to separate our healthcare and build a healthcare authority where their total focus will be on healthcare, and there won't be any kind of interference with politics, with governance. Because really our government structure, the reason why I think IHS doesn't do so well is because it's a government and they try to run a healthcare system, and that's really not the model. I think the model is a business model that we have to do with our healthcare system, and that's what we can do with the healthcare authority. And so we have people working on that, developing that. We have the 638 proposal, and hopefully by July, we'll have the 638 and we'll have the healthcare authority plans in place. The proposal will go to IHS, and the opening will be, grand opening for OMAC Clinic will be October 1st. And we're trying to hit that the same date as our 638 application and get our health authority plans in place. So those are the things, the reason why I want to run this third and final term is to get those things completed. Thank you.
And can you repeat the question, Lola?
What are your top priorities if you're elected, and how do you plan to achieve them?
Thank you. Well, once again, we talked about the substance abuse. That's one of my top priorities as it's affected me personally. Just recently, I had a good friend pass away from alcoholism. It's hard to watch. We kind of went to treatment at the same time, kind of got sober. He fell back, tried to help. If you're an addict, you know that you got to want help. I had 7 friends I met in treatment pass away that I graduated with. So it's one of those things that really hits close. That's why I do what I do and advocate what I do, because I think it's a horrible epidemic right now. So getting those detox centers, getting people connected to the help they need, because it's so difficult, and the connections I have is, using them to help get our people the help they want and need. Also, when my letter, I talked about the financial sovereignty. I think that's where it starts and trickles down. I'd like to see us develop some casinos and some other business ventures so that we can have unrestricted funds to pay for these things that we want, to pay for housing, to pay for wellness centers, to pay for a detox center. I think that's where it starts. And when I talk to my other friends from other tribes that are, financially well off, they can afford all of these things. So I believe getting the casinos and some other developments going is a good way for us to, actually flex our sovereignty. So that's what I would do. Thank you.
Yeah, my priority is our people. I wouldn't, or probably wouldn't even ran if I wasn't worried about all of our people and this administration that is going to really impact our tribe. Come October, when the federal funding comes through, how many programs are we going to have left in this building? How many jobs is it going to cut? How much services our people could lose? I have a friend that works in DC in ACL, and that's the program that helps our elders with in-home care. It helps our senior meal sites. It helps with our disabled. You know, the administrations wants to cut LIHEAP. How many people have trucks and have chainsaws to be able to bring in firewood to keep warm in the winter time? Our veterans, I asked the question about the Veterans Administration. They're going to be restructured just the same as any of the other, and just hearing on the news that they're going to cut out a bunch of generals from the armed services. You know, being a veteran, we need to make sure that we're protecting our people that are veterans. And anyway, some of those programs are the programs that help a lot of you. You know, and they want to try to cut the education department. How will you attend college without a Pell Grant? Things like that. Our impact aid for our schools, you know, 44% in the Nespelem school alone. When I was on the school board, you know, when you take those kind of cuts, the school board is going to have to decide which jobs they're going to have to take away. And that means that the students will get less people helping them learn, and that I don't want to see that happen. So my main purpose is to be lobbying and try to protect every program that we can. To me, that's very important. The jobs help our local economy. We lose a lot of those jobs. You know, our businesses in gaming and things like that, the revenue will go down. And anyway, I just can't express, you know, any more that, you know, it's about the people, and they're gonna, and having a voice.
My top priority is bringing my voice to the table for our people, for our membership. You know, we have great leaders there already, and like Andy said, is the administration that we have to deal with. We need to start going there and using our voice, voicing our needs for our reservation, for our people to remain here, to be employed, to go to school, to continue with our traditions and custom. We need to go to Washington, D.C. and use our voice. And I plan to use my voice for that, to advocate the best I can for all of our people across this here reservation. You know, thinking back on when my parents would tell us stories about my Aunt Lucy, and what she did to help with the termination era. You know, she used to sell her own cattle, buy her own plane tickets, bring herself over to and start advocating. And that's what helped, is her voice, her advocation for that. And that's what I plan on doing, is not only for everything that we need here, but to bring it back to our people and help heal our people as a whole, because I'm tired of seeing funerals every week. I'm tired of seeing our children suffer. I'm tired of seeing our families suffer. I'm tired of not being able to do a whole lot that I can probably do if I get elected on council, because, you know, the sky is the limit, and that's where I'm headed. Thank you.
I think mental health is probably my number one priority. I think a lot of things stem from mental health. I think our addictions and our anxieties stem from mental health. Our traumas that are developed early on are what I would like to focus on. You know, getting into school and getting groups like this together, where you guys, you know, you have this group right here. I'd like to see something like this similar Kind of like when he was saying, like with Dare, you know, I remember as a kid we would have like a club or like a group that we would meet, you know, and do certain things. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And I believe that is what it takes. You know, you guys need to own it. You guys need to be the ones to truly break the barriers and break the norms that were created by my generation. You know, it's going to be on you guys, and I think you guys helping each other is way more effective than somebody like us coming into the school and trying to tell you something and give you a class, and you guys don't pick up on that. But if you guys talk to each other and can connect with each other, I think that is where we're going to make the most change and have the most effect, is if we can get that kind of program going on. And that would be my goal, is to see that kind of thing develop in each of our districts, where we have where this youth group kind of maybe expands out to be more than what it is right now. I don't know. I don't know enough about it right now, but I just feel like if we can tackle the demons early on, that we're, you know, that's like over half of the battle as far as mental health and drug addiction goes.
For me, my main priorities for the tribe would be to help stop the drug addictions and the origins of them, or where they're getting their drugs from. My other would be financial stability, not just for the tribe, but for the members themselves. See what it takes to help guide them to be more stable and more use their money in more ways to help themselves and their families. And one of the other things that I would, one of my other bigger priorities would be bringing opportunities back to the youth, back to you guys, to show you what the world can offer and what the tribe's willing to help you guys with. And then hopefully, at the end of the day, you guys come back with that knowledge and provide that to the next generation and the next generation. Causes a cycle that we're benefiting and bettering each other. Because that was my goal when I went to school. I paid for all that, majority of that out of pocket. Went out, got my education, and I brought that back. My whole goal was to bring what I learned in the real world back here and try to make the tribe a better place. And I actually do believe that I've helped with that. And being, coming on to council with that, the younger knowledge and the younger ideals could possibly benefit to where I can help hopefully bridge the gap between you guys and the older council members that have the experience and the knowledge, but be able to bridge the gap with the technology and the things that are out in the world. So those are the things that I would, I want to see.
My first thought is I don't want to see our people suffer. And I don't think that with this present administration that we've seen the full impact of what that's going to be with declining budgets and budget cuts. I was the chair during Trump's last administration, but that was also during the COVID pandemic. And if some of the managers were here, they can remember in this very room, before it was even a pandemic, I called all of the managers together as a mandatory meeting. And I just wanted to hear from everybody their ideas of what we could do to prevent our people from dying because of the COVID pandemic at the time. I'd really like to see where our council could pull together our staff and people together again to begin to discuss how are we going to survive over these next couple of years with this present administration. How can we find greater efficiencies with our budgets? How can we keep people working when these budgets are cut? When I was the chair, we had about approximately $150 million in grants and contracts with about $100 million in funded by tribal revenue. And both of those, I know, have been declining. And I think they're going to decline even more. And we need to be prepared for that. We can't just say, well, I'm going to go to Congress and I'm going to talk. Well, we need to have a strategy. We need to work with others, you know, and really address this. So that would be my number one priority. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for participating in this youth event. We want to acknowledge the courage it takes to step up and run for this type of position. We wish you all good luck and hope that you can continue engaging in the youth. We'd also like to add that everyone is invited to eat and take food home if there are leftovers. Thank you all. Safe travels home.